Hi guys, this is Brryce with Bridging Stars. Just recently at my medical school, we had a speaker named Dr. Cay Randall May come into a mind-body class to talk to us about a field called medical intuition. I found it to be very fascinating, and I figured that if I would go and interview her, a lot of people would appreciate what she has to say, as it's very off the beaten path, but extremely interesting, and she is an incredible person with a very multifarious background. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview, and before we start, have a look at her garden. It is beautiful, and throughout the video I'll be posting information so that if you guys want to know more about her, it will be easy. Okay, hi guys, we're here in Arizona with Dr. Cay Randall May. Dr. Cay Randall May, if you do not know her, she is somebody who is renowned in the world of intuition. But a little bit about her, she has a doctorate in entomology, which is the study of insects. She's been a professor. She has her undergrad in biology. And she did postdoctoral work at Case Western.
That's right.
And I'm sure there's a lot I'm leaving out about you. But if you can believe it, none of those reasons are the reasons why we're interviewing Dr. Cay Randall May. We're interviewing her because she is one of two people ever to be certified by a medical scientific board for intuition. I believe that's the American Board of Scientific Intuition.
Scientific medical intuition.
Medical intuition. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is medical intuition.
Medical intuition is actually, I believe, probably one of the most ancient approaches to healing that we don't really know. It dates way before recorded history. But it's where individuals can get their own intuitive insights into the physical body, its well-being, its processes. So it covers and it's not limited to the physical, which would be the natural thing. We think in our typical allopathic medicine of today, biology, chemistry, even the physics of the functioning body, the physiology and the morphology of it. But medical intuition also covers the more subtle aspects of the body and its health, involving the what could be called the bioplasmic field, the interspersed and extending beyond this energy that we call chi or ki. So medical intuition often covers that. Also deeper issues, emotional issues of one sort or another, and relationships that people have with other people and their own higher talents and abilities. So it's very, very inclusive.
Wow. So with intuition, when you're referring to that, what does that encompass to you? If you could define intuition and maybe even with synonymous terms to what intuition might be?
Intuition is one of those terms in our language that is so used, it's misused, and it becomes meaningless almost. The way I use it is extended sense perception. I feel that once we understand the nature of matter and energy, it will become truly apparent that there's no such thing as extrasensory perception. As you might have heard about ESP from previous years, that is a word, term that I feel is really dated, and it indicates a lack of understanding of physics. But truly, our physical body is only a portion of our being, and if we understand quantum physics and the approach that I've taken in understanding my book on subtle energy, it becomes clear that our senses, even though they are visibly focused on our sensory organs, are actually more global in the body. So we could call this extended sensory perception. Would include things like remote viewing, which is also known as clairvoyance, telepathy, which is known as mind-to-mind communication, precognition, retrocognition, psychokinesis, which is involved in healing, and psychometry, which is obtaining impulses or impressions from touch.
So before we get into all these different modalities that you use, maybe you could tell us a little about the process of being certified by the American Medical Board of Scientific Medical Intuition.
American Board of Scientific Medical Intuition has standards, ethical standards, which are extremely detailed, but they offer certification both as a counseling intuitive through a process of submission to the board, case reports, etc. And then through testing, they offer certification in medical intuition. And the test involves one going to a specific place, often Chicago, but it depends on where it would be, being in residence there, staying there for a while, and then over a period of days, receiving a certain number of cases where it's only the name of the individual is given to you, no other information.
Wow.
And then from that, you must give extensive analysis of what's going on with that. 40 cases is the standard, and then the accuracy has to be at least 75%. I have been doing medical intuition for many years, more than 30 years. I've worked with many physicians, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of clients. So it's a matter of, you have to be very precise for the board and also in practice. It's not enough to say, for instance, that a person has headaches. You want to know what the origin of the headaches might be. And so it's a good idea for an individual to know anatomy and physiology. At least I think that's a good idea. However, it's not limited to that, because classically, when medical intuition was first defined by von Mesmer and others, there were individuals, Casey, who really did not have a lot of formal education. However, I feel it's a good practice for people who are interested in such things as this to at least be aware of the terminology used so that you can communicate successfully and clearly with physicians and others who are interested.
And this blows my mind. So you only get the name of the person.
That's right.
And just from the name, you have to be 75% accurate in the findings. And who certifies this? Who verifies that you're accurate?
Dr. Norman Shealy, who's an MD, PhD, and other physicians who work to grade.
Wow.
Now, when I was training myself, I had been an intuitive, general intuitive for many years, while I was also teaching biology and doing other things. So I've been doing this for many years. So I recruited my own physician and asked him, as a scientist, because I consider myself a scientist, how little information I would need. I wanted to have almost as close to double-blind as possible. And so I did over 100 cases with just case numbers that were given to me from a physician, but he was never in the room at the time they did the readings. There would be other individuals who would give me the numbers, and the physician was never present, so he couldn't do any clues, no facial expressions or anything like that, it might be clues. So nobody in the room knew what these numbers pertained to. And I used that over a period of a year to get deeper and deeper and deeper. Everything was transcribed and everything was in my created. So that was part of the way I found it a deeper training. Plus, I've always been, I have degrees in entomology, but it was not in field entomology. Going out and capturing insects, although I did do that in the field. It was in morphology and physiology, comparative anatomy, morphology, and physiology. So really, my background was histology, pathology, parasitology, of both vertebrates as well as invertebrates. My master's degree was on the circulatory scorpion system. So I followed the scorpion circulatory systems from a couple of different species from different families of scorpion. But because they've been around for so many years, 350 years or so, there are actual anatomical differences in their hearts, and they have a more complete circulatory system than insects do. So I was able to do the histology and the microanatomy, and then I worked as part of my master's. I worked also, and then for my doctorate, on the anatomy of the caterpillar wall, the body wall of the caterpillar, going down through the layers and drawing all the musculature, and then finding one muscle that was innervated by one axon. And then, because in insects, rather than having polyneuronal axonal innervation of musculature, a muscle fiber, which is a whole muscle, and would be innervated by one nerve. So then I was able to denervate an entire muscle by ligating just one nerve trunk and use spider web, and did hundreds and hundreds of operations on caterpillars and such. So then followed with the electron microscope. So I worked with electron microscope for years and years and years. So my work that way, and my love and passion for anatomy, physiology, and for intuition just merged together. So now I still study medicine.
So let me ask you, with your extensive background in science, especially what you said, physiology, biology,
yeah.
You say that that's translated quite easily for you into medical intuition, but could anyone do this? Is this a skill set? Is this a superhuman? Because a lot of people would say that's superhuman.
Oh, no. I would not say it that way. I compare it to any sort of skill set that one might have a natural propensity for. In other words, there are families that have music as their, and everybody in the family has a musical instrument. They all sit together and they jazz, kind of thing. There are families that are highly mathematical. There are families that are sports oriented, and everybody in the family gets out, gets into a sport. In my family, it was intuition. And so I come from a family where they were intuitive. My grandmother was highly intuitive, and she was a nurse, and she would have been doing everything I'm doing, and she lived long enough. And so I was told by her that this thing called the second sight, which we have, that's what it's called in Ireland, where her mother came from. It goes way back for generations. So I believe one is born with the hard wiring, or whatever it is, and then one has to find one's passion there and essentially work at it and practice. I've been practicing since I was in grade school. I have been working on altered states of awareness consciously since I was in grade school. And so for many years, studying everything I could, and working with whatever teachers I could find.
So it is possible.
It is possible,
right.
And I feel that people self-select usually when they are interested in it. They sign up for my courses. It's usually because they have a degree of natural propensity, and then they're just looking to ways to improve it. And over the years, I've made a synthesis of 4 steps, which I feel are at least a way of communicating the steps. I'm not going to say they're easy, that they're simple to state, but they're not easy. They're the work of a lifetime. The first is to set one's intention, and there are many levels to intentionality. And the second is to relax and clear. Easy to say, you just relax and clear. And the third one is to engage and blend. Again, easy to say.
What is engage and blend?
Means to whatever one is trying to focus on, you have to then merge energetically with that. And then the fourth one is the one that really makes the difference, and that is the one that's truly the work of a lifetime, and that's see agape love. Because without unconditional agape love, it's backfires. Everything backfires. And of course, I'm interested in healing as well. You know, spiritual healing, prayer healing, energy healing, the call. And so I'm actually Reverend Dr. Cay Randall May. So I've been ordained since 1982. And so I feel that, and I'm still, you know, practicing pastor, not out of a particular congregation, but a minister at large.
Interesting. So you talked to us about love, and you've also talked to us a little bit about ethics. Maybe you can explain how the two are related to what you're doing in medical intuition, and is there ethical a standard that you encourage others who are trying to do such a thing to practice?
First, as you learn in most medical school, do no harm. Absolutely. Because these abilities are tools, and they can be used any way one wishes. Just like sight is a tool. But what you read, how you use your eyes, that takes wisdom. And so to me, what life is all about is gaining greater wisdom, greater awareness of how to use these tools. It's not all about developing the tools. Anyone who really works hard enough and tries and can develop a modicum of these abilities. But whether they are worth doing or not worth doing depends on the ethical standards. So I distill them all down to various things which invade other people's privacy. A big one is you don't just go around and talk to strangers unasked and start telling them what you're seeing, giving them psychically. I mean, it's not our business. We can intrude. We can interfere.
Okay.
And so it's a matter of how to keep appropriate, healthy boundaries, how to make certain that we ourselves are healthy, and live lives that are well-founded and real. So there's a lot to it. The ethical statement for the American board is about 4 or 5 pages that you can print off easily. It took many years to put that together, and I highly regard what they've done there. All about payment and making certain that services are delivered correctly, and the confidentiality is extremely important. All these ethical standards.
I'll make sure to put those standards of the board in the video underneath at this time if you want to click on it. And can you tell us maybe a little bit more about your experience? Like when you are doing medical intuition, what are you experiencing? What does that methodology look like to you?
Well, I follow the 4 steps.
Okay.
And this means that I don't necessarily take on others' pain. I don't necessarily feel what's going on with them. I'm highly visual, although I do feel kinesthetically in many ways. Primarily, I'm getting in like a screen in my mind. I get a good vision of what's going on, seeing down to the microscopic level if I want to. For instance, if I'm looking at the gut of the individual, what region of the gut might I be attending to, and what part of the gut line, perhaps is it the brush border, is it something else? Again, I'm like a really small intestine. So anyway, we see just about anything that one would see with other medical techniques. But it's a matter of seeing it from the inside out, constantly scoping self to make sure that I'm doing well.
Wow.
So, but in terms of things, sometimes there are symbolic things. For example, one gentleman came to me, a person who I know for a while, who was a chiropractor himself, and he was having a problem with bursitis in his shoulder. Couldn't figure out what was going on, so I had his energy field there, and I was looking intuitively, and I saw a bicycle. So I took what that meant, and I said to him, you know, in your shoulder, I'm just going to see a bicycle. And he started to And he said, yes, I love to mountain bike, but my practice is so busy, I don't have time to do that. And so the shoulder strain was part of his tension within himself because of this wonderful activity that he preferred to do. So he and I talked about it. He decided to maybe start bicycling to work. Well, he was able to do it. He was in a small enough community to safely do that, and his bursitis cleared up.
Wow.
But he had to first connect that it was a part of his life that was cherished, part of his life, this activity that he called mountain bicycle, that he had given up because his practice was so extremely taxing to a lot of people. So there are often deeper issues which get missed by allopathic medicine. I believe they're present in naturopathic medicine, and that's one reason why I'm very much a fan of naturopathic medicine, because my experience with naturopaths is that they look at the whole person, and they aren't so over-specialized that the toe doctor can't look at the ears, and they see the person as a living creature, the person involved with others in their own environment, which makes so much more sense. So this is what medical intuition does as well. I deal with all kinds of medical issues. So often what I do then is talk to the physician or healing team if the patient wants me to do that, and if they're willing to talk to them.
And in your experience, medical intuition.
There was an interesting case that I could tell you about.
Oh yeah, tell us, please.
It's something I'd only seen once before, but a physician called me and said, "Kay, I've got this patient in my office." And in this case, the physician told me a bit about the individual, some of the things that they've been doing, and immediately I got the vagus nerve involved. And I recognized that what this was an involvement with the herpes virus, actually in the vagus nerve, and was causing them to be a stasis, periodically a stasis in the large intestine. Would go days without having any evacuation of the large intestine, and nausea and all kinds of problems, and then it would pass. So I asked the physician, I said, the plank was right there. This was another state. I was living in the presence of my asked him if he's had any issue with cold sores. He did. He said yes. And so they began to put two and two together. And this was just recent. This is within a month. And so I said, I think this is this herpes involvement with the vagus nerve. I've seen this, something similar to this before. And so the physician picked me all up, and then within 15 minutes sent me a paper, a copy of a paper where but somebody else had online done some research on the fact that herpes can be internalized too, and with 3 different presentations. There's the more upper, and there's the mid, and the lower, and it's not recognized by most people.
Wow. So, as a medical intuitive, you do diagnosis?
It's technically not diagnosis. I
Okay.
only give my impressions. One cannot do diagnosis unless one is an MD. I have a PhD, not MD.
Okay.
Those who are MDs or naturopathic physicians, they'll be able to give diagnoses. And this is, I feel they're the best people to study this, because they don't have to announce to their clients, their patients, that they're medical intuitives if they choose not to, but they enrich their practice with it. And then it would help them to then look for the outer proofs or outer tests or outer examinations that would verify what they do. So all I do is give impressions, but I don't. Online it's called diagnosis, but that is a technical term that we don't use.
Okay. And can you help the patient in the healing process?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because that's, again, practicing medicine. I don't practice in medicine, so I don't talk about medical remedies, maybe approaches, like something like acupressure might be good, Ayurvedic might be good for this or this or that, but not take such and such a medicine, such and such a dosage. Now, again, if a practitioner is licensed to diagnose and prescribe, hey, you go for it. Absolutely.
Very cool. So for people who are getting into medical intuition or just into intuition in general, I think
intuition can be used for many things.
Many things. I think one of the common questions is, how can I know to trust my intuition? How do I know that it's actually real or not?
Trust but verify. Because you always have to have people who are testing you, and you test yourself, and all of that. Don't be afraid to test. You're not going to be 100% accurate. No one is. And so there will be times you miss things, and the patients will get back to you. Oh yeah, I've had hemoglobin, I've been here, some such and that. Well, thank you for sharing. You know, I did the best I could in this thing. You just keep practicing with feedback. That's why I worked with my physician for as long as I did, and he would grade, and he would say, you're all red here and all red there. One of the most interesting cases that I felt was the greatest gift I had from that work was I was going along, they gave me a number, and I couldn't internally see the patient. Instead, I just saw a very bright white light, just blinding light. And I heard in my mind, like an audible thought, that this person was in remission, and that they were preparing a party, and she was about to attend the party. So that's what I said. And then the physician graded it all along. We got the transcript, and then I got that back after a couple of days, and then after more days came by, and he called and said, well, what was the time you did this and what day? And I told him. He said she had just died. So what I saw was the light. So that's interesting to me, because it's not, that light was not an artifact of my hypoxia. Many people say that the light, when described in a near-death experience, is hypoxia, a lack of oxygen in the brain, and all these other things, because they're just relying on that person's recount. I saw a third person.
Wow.
And
that is very interesting.
And she was going into remission, and they were preparing a party for her. She had just died of ovarian cancer. And nobody knew. The physician didn't know. Nobody knew what she was doing at the time. So it wasn't like I was reading somebody's mind. Somehow people often think, well, it's easier to explain. It's telepathy as opposed to, they're equally preposterous if you think about it. But they think, oh, just explain it with telepathy, okay. But in that case, that was not either one of those. It couldn't have been. Nobody. And to me, that was the greatest gift that I got from that work, because I can say I have seen the light. I can say that. It's a real.
The light is there, guys.
It is there. It is truly there.
So, with all these terms, telepathy, mind reading, maybe can you explain to us, where do these impressions come from? How do you refer to them? And would you
I think
maybe
we all have them.
Yeah.
I think we have to understand matter and energy, and that's why I suggested people reading the book on inner visions of matter and solar energy, published in 2014.
We'll put that book down below, as well as with the rest of Dr. Cay Randall May's books. She's written many books, and
at least those, not the entomology ones.
Not the entomology books.
But the idea here is that matter forms and reforms at billions of seconds of time. So all matter, every bit of it, is pure, non-form energy. And then it forms across an interface that I call the etheric template to form discrete particles, which are nothing more than concentrated energy, which have mass and have location. They become matter. So everything is reformed at billions of seconds of time. So we are every bit as much all one energy as we are individual separate matter. So there's no communication between individual separate matter. Your physical brain and my physical brain are different crania. However, around our brains there are pure energetic energy field which is all one. So we're all constantly mingled. We're all one. As the metaphysicians have told us forever.
Right.
And so what happens is we are going to then retain information in the physical form, in the physical synapses, when they form. That is where the process lies. It's how to somehow maintain or retain the information from the complete connection. And that's where most of my work is medical intuitive, absolutely. But I consider my more important work as scientific and technical work, in which I connect with the universal unconscious. And that's where more than 25 years been working. I've invented things and other things with a whole team of scientists.
Wow.
So that work is more important, I feel, than the medical intuition. I call it intuitive innovation. And it is the work where now we're coming to understand the nature of matter and energy, the nature of inertia, the nature of all these forces. I understand dark energy and all these things. So,
wow.
So that's, to me, much more.
That's the gem.
It's more universal than the individual medical communication. And of course, in interspecies communication, which is cool too.
Maybe you could talk to us about interspecies communication. And lots of people.
There was an opportunity we had this last class when you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Sima, the cat,
Sima, yeah.
and then AH. Well, I did a reading for the caretaker. His cats don't have owners. Staff and the caretaker of Sima the cat. And what I felt when I connected it to, I purposely tried not to connect with her while the class was getting their impressions because I didn't want to interfere and I didn't want to taint the results. Many of the people had impressions and many of them contributory. But what I thought was a central issue was this. Sima's a female kitty. She is neutered, but she's a female kitty raised with two male kitties who are also neutered. And Sima is licking herself, licking herself raw. And she would do every single test. The veterinarian said there's nothing wrong. No, okay, yes. The Sima has gained weight. She won't lose weight. She's in a kind of false pregnancy. Because she's got pheromone exchange with these male cats, and yet she can't get pregnant. She has nothing to mother. So I suggested that her caretaker take some socks, the caretaker's socks, and put them in the bed with Sima, so that she would have something like pseudo kittens, or even buy her a beanie baby or something. And so then the owner of the cat remembered that many years ago, she had a dog who did the same thing. And the dog went into a false pregnancy and grabbed her socks and took them in, guarded them for a period of time. And the vet just told the woman to wait it out. It was false pregnancy. And this, I think, is the same thing.
Wow.
But the cat is licking itself because, like, with grooms babies, you know, a mama cat always grooms its babies because no babies to groom. So it's over-grooming itself. So when I connected with Sima psychically, she never had a litter teeth, and she felt like her life was wasted. She felt like she had all to the ongoing project of Katniss, you know, and so that was part of the document. I want to connect it with a sidekick.
So to be able to do interspecies communication, is that just a knowingness that we all can have to really appreciate and empathize with the different species?
It's the same as all the other birds. Most people who are drawn to animals, who really have an affinity for them, I think have an affinity for interspecies communication. Now they might be drawn to certain animals more than others, and if their motivation is not really a love of the animal, but their motivation is a love of what the animal does for them.
Okay.
Like you enjoy cows because you want cheese, type of thing. It might be different than somebody who's drawn to biology in general, who just loves critters. And I can remember one time I was little, I didn't want to play with dolls. I didn't want to play with the toys. I wanted to go play with the arthropods. I'm raised here in Arizona, so I could play with bugs from the time I was little. And I've always spent hours watching them and just being close to the natural world. I've always felt that I could talk to plants, and you know, so well, what are you going to say? You know, it's an affinity which then takes you to different places. But you're not always going to, if you want to do interspecies communication, you're always going to be happy with what you hear. Because we as humans are not necessarily the kindest creatures in the world to other critters. And so there's a lot of, you're going to have stuff that'll break your heart if you really listen.
If you could give any advice to yourself as a child, with everything that you know now, what advice would that be?
I'll just keep on going. You will get there. This when I was in first grade, you know, my friends wanted to be nurses, they wanted to be teachers, and I wanted to be a scientist priestess, and that's what I am. I just took a while for me to fail with science. I tried various ones, and, you know, in grade school, and I wanted to go to parapsychology, and there was no way that there was any classes in parapsychology, you know, in high school. But as a freshman in high school, we wrote a paper, first thing, in English, freshman English. What are you going to do when you grow up? And I was parapsychology, a new science. So I never became a parapsychologist, but I'm glad I became a biologist, because I like this one.
And is there anything else that you'd like to say to our viewers before we sign out?
Just, of course, remember they must take care of themselves as much as the person. And if they do not avoid burnout, if they do not avoid overwork, the channels are not as clear. You can't do the work that you're set out to do. Don't let the administrators and those people who don't want to do the work force you into that which is not helping themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate all the amazing advice that you've given. And below, we're going to have all of her information of the books that she's written. If you want to check out more with Dr. Cay Randall May, that will be a great resource for you. And I'll also give you a link to her website.
Thank you.
Thank you so much today.
Thanks so much.